The stars in the Andromeda sector had not changed for 3,000 years. The same crystalline ships moved between the same worlds, carrying the same orders from the same throne. Empress Veltara sat on that throne now, her body made of living, crystal that caught the light from 100 different suns. She ruled the galaxy because her people were stronger, smarter, and more advanced than any other species they had ever found. The Veltaran dominion stretched across thousands of star systems. Every world, every moon, every asteroid belt belonged to the Empire. The lesser species served their betters as nature intended. The furry Kethmori hauled cargo between worlds. The scaled Drakmor dug precious metals from dead planets. And the elves, those proud pointed-ear people, had learned their place after 2 centuries of proper education. Princess Zarathiel crouched behind a broken wall on the mining moon of Keto 7. Her silver hair was dirty and her once beautiful clothes were torn. She watched Veltaran guards march elven workers toward the transport ships. Her people moved slowly, their heads down, their spirits broken by years of slavery. The princess touched the small device hidden in her jacket. It was an old elven communication crystal, one of the few things the Empire had not managed to find and destroy. Through it, she could speak to other resistance groups scattered across the galaxy. Most of them were small, weak, and barely surviving, but they were still fighting. Lyra Shan appeared beside her like a shadow. The older elf woman had been Zarathiel's teacher and friend since childhood. Now she was the military leader of their little band of rebels. She carried an energy sword that hummed softly in the darkness. "The transport leaves in 1 hour," Lyra Shan whispered. "We can save maybe 20 of them if we move now." Zarathiel looked at the heavily armed guards. There were too many. Even with their natural ability to bend space and appear in different places, they could not fight so many enemies. 20 lives saved, 40 rebels lost, she said sadly. The numbers do not work. Far above them, past the atmosphere of the mining moon, past the asteroid fields and gas giants, something strange was happening at the edge of the star system. Energy readings appeared on Veltaran sensors that made no sense. The patterns were wrong, the frequencies unknown, the power signatures impossible. Empress Veltara received the report in her crystal palace on the homeworld. General Krixtal, her military commander, stood before the throne. His crystal body was larger and darker than hers, shaped for war instead of ruling. Admiral Nixara stood beside him, her form more elegant but still deadly. "Unknown energy sources detected in the outer rim," General Krixtal reported. "Our scientists believe they are natural phenomena. Solar flares, perhaps, or gravitational anomalies." The Empress studied the data floating in the air before her. The readings were indeed strange. In 3,000 years of galactic domination, they had never seen anything like this. But natural phenomena did not interest her. "Send probe ships to investigate," she commanded. "If it is nothing, we lose nothing. If it is something, we will know." General Krixtal bowed his crystal head. "It will be done, my Empress." Admiral Nixara was less certain. Something about the energy patterns bothered her. They seemed almost organized, like they had purpose behind them. But she said nothing. In the Empire, questioning the Empress was not wise. Meanwhile, far from the Crystal Palace and the mining moon, Captain Lisa Morgan stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty. Around her, men and women from Earth worked at control stations filled with technology that would have amazed the greatest Veltaran scientists. The ship itself was a miracle of human engineering, powered by controlled fusion reactions and protected by gravity fields that could bend space itself. Dr. Kate Williams looked up from her science station. Her computer screens showed wave patterns and energy readings from across the local star group. "Captain, I'm picking up more of those structured transmissions, definitely artificial. There's an advanced civilization operating in this region." Commander Amy Foster, the ship's second officer, checked her tactical displays. The former Marine had been through more battles than she cared to remember, and her instincts were telling her to be careful. "Could be hostile. We should assume they've detected us too." Captain Morgan nodded. She had led Earth's first deep space exploration fleet for 6 months now. They had traveled farther from home than any human before them, using technology that was still new and sometimes unpredictable. Finding alien life had always been the goal, but now that it was happening, she felt the weight of responsibility. "Any attempts at communication?" she asked. Dr. Williams shook her head. "Nothing directed at us, but I'm detecting what might be distress signals from several locations. If I'm reading this right, there are ships or stations sending emergency broadcasts." The bridge fell quiet. Every person there understood what this might mean. Either the aliens were in trouble and might need help, or this was some kind of trap. Either way, humanity was about to make first contact with a galactic civilization. "Set course for the nearest signal source," Captain Morgan ordered. "But keep our weapons ready and our engines warm. If this goes bad, I want to be able to run." The Liberty and its escort ships turned toward the inner system. Their quantum drives produced energy signatures that had never been seen in this galaxy before. The fusion reactors that powered them created gravitational waves that rippled through space in patterns that confused every sensor designed by Veltaran science. On the mining moon below, Princess Zarathiel felt something change. The feeling was hard to describe, like a whisper in the back of her mind, or a shift in the cosmic wind. She looked up at the stars and wondered if the old prophecies might be true. The ancient elven texts spoke of a time when help would come from beyond the known worlds, when strangers would arrive to break the chains of oppression. "Do you feel that?" Lyra Shan asked quietly. "Something is different," Zarathiel agreed. "Something is coming." Above them, Veltaran probe ships were already moving toward the outer system. General Krixtal expected to find nothing more than space storms or dying stars. Admiral Nick Zara hoped he was right. And Empress Veltara continued to rule her crystal empire, unaware that the galaxy was about to change forever. The human fleet moved deeper into alien space, carrying technology that would challenge everything the Veltaran Dominion believed about the universe. Captain Morgan did not know that her ships were being watched, or that her decision to investigate the distress signals would start a war that would reshape the galaxy. In the darkness between the stars, two very different civilizations were about to meet for the first time. Admiral Nick Zara commanded the probe fleet from her flagship, the Crystal Spear. Around her, 15 of the Empire's finest warships moved through space like deadly jewels. Each vessel was a work of art, shaped from living crystal that could repair itself and powered by energy cores that had burned for centuries. The Admiral studied the sensor readings on her command display. The unknown energy sources were getting stronger as they approached. The patterns were definitely artificial, but unlike anything in the Imperial database. After 3,000 years of galactic rule, finding something truly new was almost impossible. "Contact in 30 minutes, reported her tactical officer, a younger Veltaran whose crystal body gleamed with nervous energy. Admiral Nick Zara nodded. Standard protocol was clear. Unknown contacts were assumed hostile until proven otherwise. The Empire had not survived this long by taking chances with alien technology. Light years away, Captain Lisa Morgan watched her own displays with growing concern. Dr. Kate Williams had been tracking the approaching ships for an hour now. The alien vessels moved in perfect formation and showed no signs of attempting communication. 15 ships, all roughly the same size as our cruisers, Commander Amy Foster reported from the tactical station. "They're definitely military. Formation suggests they're expecting trouble." Dr. Williams looked up from her science console. "Captain, I've been analyzing their approach vector. They're not responding to any of our standard greeting protocols. Either they don't understand them, or they're choosing to ignore us." Captain Morgan felt the tension on the bridge. Every human officer understood they were about to make first contact with an alien military force. The outcome of the next few minutes could determine the future relationship between humanity and whatever civilization controlled this region of space. "Open all frequencies," she ordered. "All languages, all standard mathematical sequences, even basic pictographs. If there's any way to communicate peaceful intent, I want us trying it." The communication attempt reached the Crystal Spear just as Admiral Nick Zara's fleet came within visual range of the human ships. What she saw made her crystal form flicker with alarm. The alien vessels looked nothing like any known design. They were built from metal and composites instead of living crystal. Worse, they were surrounded by energy fields that her sensors could not properly analyze. "Admiral," her science officer called out, "their transmission patterns are interfering with our targeting systems. The quantum encryption is somehow disrupting our weapon locks." Admiral Nix Ara made a decision that would change galactic history. The alien transmissions looked like weapon targeting systems to her trained military mind. The strange energy fields around their ships had to be some kind of exotic shielding. In her experience, only hostile forces approached with weapons ready. "And defenses active. All ships attack formation," she commanded. "Destroy the alien vessels before they can deploy whatever weapons they're preparing." The Crystal Spear and her escort ships opened fire with concentrated energy beams that could melt through planetary armor. The beams struck the human ships and simply vanished, absorbed by gravitational fields that bent space itself around the vessels. On the Liberty's bridge, alarms screamed as the first energy blasts hit their defenses. Commander Amy Foster's hands flew over her control panel, analyzing the alien weapons and preparing countermeasures. "Their weapons are pure energy, focused through crystal matrices," she reported quickly. "Our gravity shields are holding, but barely. These things pack more punch than anything we've seen." Captain Morgan watched the tactical display as more alien ships moved to surround her small fleet. The humans were outnumbered 3-1, but they had advantages the aliens could not possibly expect. "Return fire," she ordered. "Kinetic weapons, only. Let's see how their shields handle good old-fashioned physics." The human ships responded with railgun salvos that accelerated metal projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. The kinetic rounds hit the Crystal Spear's energy shields and punched through them like they were made of paper. The first salvo damaged 3 alien ships and completely destroyed a 4th. Admiral Nix Ara stared at her damage reports in shock. The alien weapons had somehow bypassed energy shielding that had protected Veltaran ships for millennia. The projectiles were simple metal, but they hit with more force than the main guns of an Imperial dreadnought. "How is this possible?" she demanded. Her science officer's crystal form was flickering with panic. "Their weapons appear to be purely kinetic, Admiral. Our shields are designed to deflect energy, not solid matter moving at relativistic speeds." The battle continued for 17 minutes. The alien ships moved in ways that defied Veltaran understanding of space combat. They accelerated impossibly fast, turned without losing momentum, and seemed to appear and disappear at will. There, weapons struck with devastating accuracy, and their defensive systems absorbed energy attacks that should have vaporized them. Commander Amy Foster coordinated the human response from her station. Her military experience served her well as she adapted Earth combat doctrine to 3-dimensional space warfare. The aliens were tough, but they fought in predictable patterns that suggested they had not faced serious opposition in a very long time. "They're used to being the strongest force in any engagement," she reported to Captain Morgan. "Their tactics assume enemy inferiority. We can use that against them." Dr. Williams monitored the alien communications during the battle. The transmissions were becoming more frantic as the engagement progressed. She could not understand the language, but panic sounded the same in any species. When the battle ended, 13 of the 15 alien ships were either destroyed or disabled. Only Admiral Nixera's flagship and 1 escort managed to escape, their crystal hulls cracked and their energy cores failing. Captain Morgan surveyed the aftermath on her tactical display. 2 human ships had taken significant damage, but none were lost. The alien debris field contained technology that could revolutionize human understanding of physics, but she knew the priority now was survival. "They'll be back, Commander Amy," Foster said grimly. "And they'll bring more ships next time." Dr. Williams was already working on the alien communication intercepts. "Captain, I'm picking up what sounds like distress calls on multiple frequencies. I think there are other species in this region who might not be friendly with whoever we just fought." Meanwhile, Admiral Nixara limped back toward Imperial space with her surviving ships. Her report to Empress Veltara would send shockwaves through the Crystal Palace. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Veltaran Dominion had encountered a military force that could match their technology and defeat their tactics. "Prepare an emergency transmission to the capital," she ordered her communications officer. "Priority Alpha. The Empress must know immediately." In the asteroid fields near the mining moon, Princess Zarathiel felt the battle's end like a physical shock. The disturbance in spacetime had been enormous, visible to Elven's senses across multiple star systems. Whatever had happened, it was big enough to shake the foundations of the Empire. "Lyra Shan," she called to her military advisor. Prepare our fastest scouts. We need to know what just happened out there. Lyra Shan nodded, her hand instinctively moving to her energy sword. If someone is fighting the Empire, we need to find them. Quickly! Back on the crystal spear, Admiral Nixara composed her report while emergency repair crews worked to keep her ship functional. She knew the Empress would demand immediate retaliation, but she also knew the Empire was no longer the unopposed ruler of the galaxy. The aliens had technology that could challenge Veltaran supremacy. Their weapons ignored Imperial defenses. Their ships moved like living things, and their tactics suggested a military tradition based on fighting equals rather than crushing inferiors. Most disturbing of all, they had shown mercy. After defeating the Imperial probe fleet, they had not pursued the survivors or attempted to capture Veltaran technology. They had simply continued on their original course, as if the battle had been an unfortunate interruption to more important business. Admiral Nixara did not know what to make of enemies who fought like demons, but acted with restraint. In her experience, mercy was a weakness that the Empire had bred out of the galaxy long ago, but these aliens seemed to combine overwhelming military capability with something the Empire had forgotten how to recognize. As her damaged ship limped toward home, carrying news that would change everything, the human fleet continued deeper into the Andromeda sector. Captain Morgan knew they had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. The war for the future of galactic civilization had begun. Empress Veltara stood before the great crystal window of her throne room, watching the stars that had bowed to her will for so long. Admiral Nixara's report lay displayed in the air beside her, the holographic words seeming to burn with their impossible message. For the first time in 3 millennia, someone had destroyed a Veltaran fleet. General Crixtal paced behind her, his massive crystal form crackling with barely controlled rage. My Empress, we must respond immediately. Every day we delay makes the Empire look weak. Our subject species are already asking questions. The Empress turned from the window. Her crystal body was smaller than the General's, but the power that radiated from her made the air itself seem to bend around her presence. Tell me again about their weapons. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds, Admiral Nixara replied from her position near the throne. Her ship had barely made it home, and her crystal form still showed cracks from the battle damage. Our energy shields were useless against solid matter moving that fast. It was like being hit by small asteroids. General Crixtal slammed his fist against a crystal pillar, sending rainbow light cascading through the chamber. Impossible. We have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. Our technology is supreme. How can primitive kinetic weapons defeat our defenses? The Empress studied the tactical recordings from the battle. The alien ships moved with fluid grace that reminded her of something from the ancient texts, something from before the Empire's rise to power. Their coordination was perfect, their responses instantaneous, and their mercy troubling. They could have pursued you, she said to Admiral Nixara. They could have captured our technology or interrogated prisoners. Instead, they let you escape. Why? The Admiral's crystal form flickered with uncertainty. Unknown, my Empress. Their behavior does not match any known military doctrine. Far from the Crystal Palace, Princess Zarathiel crouched in the ruins of an ancient space station. The structure had been built by her ancestors centuries ago, before the Empire came to their world. Now it served as a hidden meeting place for the Resistance. Lyra Shan materialized beside her, appearing through the elven ability to step between spaces. Her scout ships had returned with incredible news. The battle site is 17 light years from here. The debris field contains fragments of 15 Imperial ships, but only 2 unknown vessels show any damage. Zarathiel felt hope stirring in her chest for the first time in decades. Someone fought the Empire and won. Who are they? The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases, Lyra Shan reported. Their technology appears to be based on gravitational manipulation and fusion power. Very different from both Imperial crystal tech and our own void-walking abilities. The princess stood and walked to the station's ancient viewing portal. Through the transparent metal, she could see the gas giant they orbited, its storms raging in patterns that had not changed since her childhood. But now, something was different. Someone had proven the Empire could be defeated. "Prepare the Star-Wind Dancer," she commanded. "If these strangers are enemies of the Empire, then they might be friends to us." Captain Lisa Morgan stood in the briefing room aboard the UES Liberty, studying the star charts that Dr. Kate Williams had assembled. 3 days had passed since the battle, and their exploration of the region had revealed the true scope of what they faced. The energy readings suggest a galactic civilization spanning thousands of star systems, Dr. Williams reported. The communication intercepts indicate a centralized government with military forces stationed throughout this entire spiral arm. Commander Amy Foster highlighted several locations on the tactical display. "We've identified what appear to be patrol routes and staging areas. This isn't just a local power. We're looking at something that controls a significant portion of the galaxy." Captain Morgan absorbed the information with growing concern. Earth's government had sent them to explore and make peaceful contact with alien civilizations. Instead, they had stumbled into what appeared to be a galactic empire and immediately ended up in a shooting war. "Any indication of other species?" she asked. Dr. Williams nodded. "The communication intercepts include references to multiple subject races. There are trade routes between different species, mining operations on worlds that seem to be run by non-natives, and what sound like military reports from occupation forces." The implications were clear. The crystal aliens they had fought were not just another species. They were the rulers of a galactic empire that kept other races under their control. "Captain," Dr. Williams continued, "I've also detected what might be distress signals from several locations. Hidden transmissions using very old technology. If I'm right, there are resistance groups operating throughout this region." Commander Amy Foster leaned forward in her chair. "Rebels fighting the Empire. That could work in our favor." Captain Morgan made her decision. "Set course for the nearest signal source. If we're going to survive in this galaxy, we need allies who understand the local situation." The human fleet changed course toward a dead star system where ancient elven technology had detected the approaching ships. Princess Zarathiel watched their approach from the bridge of the Star-Wind Dancer, her flagship that had been built using knowledge passed down from before the Empire's conquest. 17 ships, Lyra Shan reported. Their energy signatures match the readings from the battle site. These are definitely the ones who defeated the Imperial probe fleet. The princess studied the approaching vessels through her ship's sensors. They were unlike anything she had ever seen, built from metal instead of crystal or living wood, powered by contained stars instead of void energy, and armed with weapons that threw solid matter instead of shaped force. "Open communication channels," she ordered. "Let us see if they will talk." Dr. Williams detected the incoming transmission immediately. "Captain, someone's trying to contact us. The signal is coming from a ship hiding in the asteroid field." "Captain?" Morgan nodded. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of an alien vessel. The figure standing in the center was clearly not the same species they had fought earlier. This being was tall and graceful, with pointed ears and silver hair. Her clothing suggested nobility, and her bearing indicated command authority. "I am Princess Zarathiel of the Free Elves," she said in accented but understandable English. "You have done something that many thought impossible. You have defeated the Veltaran Empire in open battle." Captain Morgan stepped forward. "I am Captain Lisa Morgan of the Earthship Liberty. We had no intention of starting a war. Our mission is peaceful exploration." The elven princess smiled sadly. "Peace is a luxury few species enjoy under Imperial rule. Your peaceful mission ended the moment you entered this galaxy. But perhaps that is not entirely a bad thing." Dr. Williams worked frantically at her science station, analyzing the alien language and searching for cultural references that might help with communication. The translator systems were adapting quickly, but nuance and meaning required careful interpretation. "You said free elves," Captain Morgan continued. "Does that mean there are others who are not free?" Princess Zarathiel's expression darkened. "My people have been slaves of the Empire for 200 years. We mine their crystals, build their ships, and die in their wars. But we have never stopped fighting for our freedom." Commander Amy Foster exchanged glances with Captain Morgan. The tactical implications were immediately clear. An established resistance movement would have intelligence about Imperial capabilities and strategic weaknesses. Perhaps we should meet in person, Captain Morgan suggested. We have much to discuss. The meeting took place aboard the ancient space station, neutral ground that belonged to neither humans nor elves. Princess Zarathiel arrived with a small escort, including Lyra Shan and several other resistance leaders. Captain Morgan brought Dr. Williams and Commander Foster, along with a security detail that tried not to look too military. The first hours were spent sharing basic information. Dr. Williams explained humanity's origins and their peaceful intentions. Princess Zarathiel described the history of elven civilization and their long struggle against imperial rule. Your technology is remarkable, Lyra Shan observed as she examined a human datapad. Fusion power and gravitational manipulation. We have legends of such things from before the Empire, but the knowledge was lost. Commander Amy Foster studied elven weapon designs with professional interest. Your energy swords work on the same principles as their ship weapons, but you've found ways to make them more efficient. The breakthrough came when Dr. Williams realized that elven void-walking abilities were actually a form of quantum manipulation similar to human jump drive technology. The two species had developed different solutions to the same fundamental problems of faster-than-light travel and energy manipulation. We could learn from each other, Princess Zarathiel said, as the implications became clear. Human military innovation combined with elven knowledge of imperial weaknesses. Captain Morgan felt the weight of the decision before her. Earth's government had sent her to explore, not to start a galactic war. But the situation had evolved beyond anything the mission planners could have anticipated. "What exactly are you proposing?" she asked. The elven princess stood and walked to the station's viewing portal. Beyond the transparent metal, the gas giants, storms continued their eternal dance. "An alliance," she said simply. "Your ships and weapons, our intelligence and local knowledge. Together, we might be able to do more than just survive. We might be able to free this galaxy from 3,000 years of tyranny." In the Crystal Palace, Empress Veltara made her own decision. General Krixtal would lead a sector fleet to hunt, down, and destroy every alien ship. The Empire's response would be swift and overwhelming. The galaxy was about to change forever. General Krixtal stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crystal Throne, watching 300 Imperial warships prepare for battle. The greatest military force the Empire had assembled in centuries surrounded him, their crystal hulls gleaming with deadly purpose. Dreadnoughts that could crack planets floated alongside carriers filled with elite Void Guard fighters. All ships. "Report ready for hyperspace jump," his tactical officer announced. The young Veltaran's crystal form pulsed with excitement at the prospect of glorious battle. The general studied the tactical display showing their destination. Intelligence reports indicated the alien fleet had been detected near the Nexus Point, a strategic location where several hyperspace routes converged. It was the perfect place for a final confrontation. "Begin the jump," General Krixtal commanded. "Today we remind the galaxy why the Empire rules." Light years away, Captain Lisa Morgan stood in the command center that had been hastily constructed on the ancient space station. Human and elven officers worked side by side, combining their knowledge to prepare for the coming storm. The alliance had only existed for 2 weeks, but already both species were learning from each other. "Imperial fleet detected jumping into the Nexus Point system," Commander Amy Foster reported from her tactical station. 300 ships, including at least 20 Dreadnought-class vessels. Princess Zarathiel studied the sensor readings with Lyra Shan at her side. The elven military commander had been working with human officers to understand Imperial battle doctrine and find weaknesses they could exploit. "Standard Imperial tactics," Lyra Shan observed. "Mass formation, overwhelming firepower, and complete destruction of enemy forces. They have never needed to be subtle." Dr. Kate Williams looked up from her science console. "Our combined fleet has 47 ships. Even with our technological advantages, those odds are not encouraging." "Captain," Morgan nodded grimly. The human fleet had been reinforced by ships that arrived through the quantum tunnel from Earth, but they were still vastly outnumbered. The elven resistance had contributed their fastest and most advanced vessels, but many were old and held, together more by determination than proper engineering. We cannot win a direct confrontation, Princess Zarathiel said quietly. But we do not need to destroy their entire fleet. We need to break their confidence and prove they can be beaten. The battle plan they developed used every advantage the Alliance possessed. Human mobility and firepower would provide the main assault force. Elven void-walking abilities would allow surprise attacks from unexpected directions. And the unique properties of the Nexus Point itself would become their greatest weapon. The hyperspace convergence creates gravitational anomalies throughout the system, Dr. Williams explained. If we can destabilize the local space-time matrix, their larger ships will have trouble maneuvering. Commander Amy Foster added her own expertise. Hit and run tactics. Force them to spread out, then concentrate our firepower on isolated targets. Make them fight our kind of battle instead of theirs. General Krixtal's fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. The sight was magnificent and terrifying. 300 crystal ships arranged in geometric patterns that demonstrated the Empire's order and discipline. The general expected to find a ragtag group of rebels cowering behind asteroids, easy prey, for his overwhelming force. Instead, his sensors detected something impossible. The alien fleet was arrayed in battle formation, waiting for him. Worse, they had somehow allied themselves with elven resistance ships. The general's crystal form flickered with rage at the sight of escaped slaves fighting alongside unknown aliens. "All ships, attack formation," he commanded. "Destroy every vessel. Leave nothing alive." The Imperial fleet moved forward like an avalanche of crystal and energy. Their weapons charged with power that could melt moons, and their shields glowed with protective force that had turned aside every attack for 3 millennia. The first phase of the battle went exactly as General Krixtal expected. His ships opened fire with concentrated energy beams that should have vaporized the enemy fleet instantly. But the alien vessels simply absorbed the attacks with their impossible gravitational shields, while the elven ships seemed to flicker in and out of normal space. "Sir," his tactical officer called out with growing alarm, "our weapons are having minimal effect. The alien ships are shrugging off direct hits from our main batteries." Captain Morgan coordinated the human response from her command station. The Liberty and her sister ships accelerated to attack speed, their fusion drives pushing them far beyond anything the Imperial ships could match. Railgun salvos reached out across space, kinetic projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. The first Imperial dreadnought to take a direct hit simply disintegrated. Its crystal hull, designed to deflect energy weapons, offered no protection against solid matter moving at a significant fraction of light speed. 2 more capital ships followed it into destruction before the Imperial formation could react. Princess Zarathiel led the elven attack personally, her flagship Starwind Dancer appearing directly behind the Imperial battle line. Elven void-walking technology allowed her ships to step between dimensions, emerging inside the enemy formation where their shields and weapons were least effective. "For our people," she whispered as her ship's ancient weapons reached out to strike at Imperial supply vessels. Lyra Shawn coordinated the elven squadrons with tactical skill that impressed even Commander Amy Foster. The elven ships moved like ghosts, appearing long enough to strike before vanishing again. Their attacks targeted communication arrays and sensor clusters, blinding the Imperial fleet and disrupting their coordination. General Krixtal watched his perfect formation dissolve into chaos. Ships collided as they tried to engage enemies that appeared and disappeared at will. His communication system filled with panicked reports from captains who had never faced an opponent capable of challenging their supremacy. "Concentrate fire on the largest alien vessel," he ordered, pointing at the Liberty. "If we destroy their flagship, the rest will surrender." 20 Imperial dreadnoughts focused their main batteries on Captain Morgan's ship. The combined energy output was enough to sterilize a planet, but the Liberty's gravitational shields held firm. Dr. Williams had made modifications based on elven void energy principles, creating defensive fields that were stronger than anything humanity had previously achieved. The tide of battle turned when Commander Amy Foster implemented the most dangerous part of their plan. Using human gravitational manipulation technology combined with elven knowledge of hyperspace mechanics, she began destabilizing the Nexus Point itself. "Artificial gravity wells forming throughout the system," she reported. "Imperial ships are losing formation cohesion. The larger Imperial vessels, designed for battles in normal space, found themselves caught in gravitational anomalies that pulled them in multiple directions at once. Dreadnoughts that had ruled space for millennia suddenly became sitting targets for human kinetic weapons and elven energy strikes. General Krixtal realized with growing horror that his overwhelming advantage was disappearing. The enemy had turned the battlefield itself against him, using the unique properties of the Nexus Point to neutralize his numerical superiority. "All ships, tactical withdrawal," he commanded, but it was too late. Captain Morgan led the final assault, personally taking the liberty directly at the Crystal Throne. The two flagships engaged in a duel that would be remembered for generations, human innovation against Imperial tradition. The Liberty's ram drive, a desperate weapon designed for last resort attacks, punched through the Crystal Throne's shields like they were made of paper. Commander Amy Foster led a boarding party through the breach, fighting their way to the Imperial bridge with weapons that the Void Guard had never encountered. The battle ended with General Krixtal's capture and the destruction of over half the Imperial fleet. The survivors fled in disorder, their confidence shattered and their belief in Imperial supremacy destroyed forever. But victory came at a terrible price. The human fleet had lost nearly half its ships, including vessels carrying thousands of Earth's finest officers and crew. The Elven resistance had sacrificed countless fighters, many of them veterans who had struggled against the Empire for decades. Princess Zarathiel stood in the wreckage of her flagship's bridge, looking out at the debris field that contained the hopes and dreams of two species. The battle was won, but the war was just beginning. "Send word to every resistance cell in the galaxy," she commanded. "Tell them the Empire can be beaten. Tell them the time of liberation has come." Captain Morgan surveyed the aftermath from the Liberty's damaged bridge. Her ship would fly again, but too many good people would never return home. The price of galactic freedom was higher than anyone had imagined. "Dr. Williams," she said quietly, "prepare a message for Earth Command. Tell them we need reinforcements. Tell them we're at war." In the Crystal Palace, Empress Veltara received word of the defeat with crystalline calm. The Empire had suffered its greatest military disaster in 3,000 years, but she was far from finished. The real war was about to begin. News of the Imperial defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire through dry grass. On 1,000 worlds, enslaved species lifted their heads and whispered words that had been forbidden for centuries: freedom, liberation, hope. The impossible had happened. Someone had broken the chains that bound the galaxy. Empress Veltara stood in her crystal palace, watching reports flood in from across her empire. Mining worlds had stopped producing. Trade routes were being attacked by organized rebel groups. Entire star systems were declaring independence from Imperial rule. Admiral Nix Ara approached the throne carefully. The Empress had executed 3 generals and a dozen admirals since the defeat at Nexus Point. Bringing bad news had become a dangerous occupation in the Crystal Palace. "My Empress," she said, bowing low, "we have received a transmission from General Krixtal. He is being held prisoner by the Human-Elf Alliance. They are offering to exchange him for recognition of independent territories." The Empress turned. From the great window, her crystal form blazing with rage. "Exchange? They dare to negotiate with the Empire? Prepare the planet-killer weapons. If the galaxy will not serve, then the galaxy will burn." Admiral Nixara felt fear crystallize in her core. The planet killers were weapons from the early days of the Empire, designed to crack worlds and sterilize entire star systems. They had not been used in over 1,000 years. "My Empress," she said carefully, "such weapons would destroy billions of loyal subjects along with the rebels." "Better a dead galaxy than a free one," Empress Veltara replied coldly. But Admiral Nixara was not the only Imperial officer questioning the Empress's decisions. In military bases across the Empire, Veltaran commanders were beginning to wonder if their ruler had lost touch with reality. The humans and elves had proven that Imperial technology was not invincible. Perhaps Imperial leadership was not infallible, either. Captain Lisa Morgan stood in the command center of the new Alliance headquarters, established on a liberated world near the galactic core. Around her, officers from dozens of species worked together to coordinate the growing rebellion. The Keth Mori had brought their knowledge of trade routes. The Drakmor offered their expertise in industrial production. Even some Veltaran military units had defected, bringing advanced technology and inside information. 16 star systems have declared independence in the last month, Commander Amy Foster reported. But our intelligence sources indicate the Empress is preparing something big. Mass movement of Imperial forces toward the capital sector. Princess Zarathiel had been elected Chancellor of the new Free Worlds Coalition, a position that gave Ida her diplomatic authority over the various resistance groups. She stood before the main display, studying troop movements and fleet positions with Lyra Shan at her side. "She is gathering her strength for one final strike," the princess observed. "The Empress would rather destroy the galaxy than lose control of it." Dr. Kate Williams looked up from her intelligence analysis. "Our sources inside the Imperial military confirm it. Planet-killer weapons are being moved to the capital system. If she activates those devices, entire worlds will die." The Tioe coalition faced an impossible choice. They could continue their careful campaign of liberation, freeing worlds one by one while the Empress prepared weapons of mass destruction. Or they could risk everything in a direct assault on the Imperial capital, hoping to stop the planet killers before they could be used. "How long do we have?" Captain Morgan asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3, Dr. Williams replied. "After that, she'll be in position to start destroying rebel worlds." Chancellor Zarathiel made the decision that would determine the fate of galactic civilization. "We attack the capital. All our forces, everything we have. The Empress must be stopped before she can use those weapons." The final battle of the Galactic War began with the largest fleet action in recorded history. Over 1,000 ships from dozens of species converged on Veltaran Prime, the crystal world that had been the center of Imperial power for 3 millennia. Empress Veltara watched their approach from her palace, surrounded by the last loyal forces of her dying empire. The planet-killer weapons hung in orbit around her world like deadly jewels, their energy cores charged and ready to bring destruction to any world that defied her will. "Activate the weapons," she commanded. "Begin with the human homeworld. Let them watch their birth planet die before we destroy their fleet." But Admiral Nixera had made her own decision. The empire she had served faithfully for centuries no longer existed. In its place was a madwoman with weapons that could end galactic civilization. She turned to her tactical officers, most of whom were young Veltarans who had grown up believing in Imperial glory, not Imperial genocide. "Arrest the Empress," she commanded. "She is no longer fit to rule." The Crystal Palace erupted in fighting as Imperial forces split between those loyal to the Empress and those who followed Admiral Nixera. Veltaran fought Veltaran in the halls of power, while the Coalition fleet battled the remaining Imperial navy in space above. Captain Morgan led the assault on the planet-killer weapons personally. The Liberty and a squadron of human ships fought their way through the orbital defenses, their kinetic weapons punching holes in crystal armor that had seemed invincible just months before. Commander Amy Foster coordinated the boarding actions that captured 3 of the 5 planet killers. Her Marines, working alongside Elven commandos and Kethmori engineers, disabled the weapons before they could be used to destroy inhabited worlds. Chancellor Zarathiel landed on Veltaran Prime with a coalition army that included soldiers from every species that had suffered under Imperial rule. They fought through the Crystal City, liberating slave quarters and freeing prisoners who had been held in Imperial dungeons for decades. The final confrontation took place in the Empress's throne room. Veltara stood alone, her crystal form blazing with power as she faced the leaders of the coalition that had destroyed her empire. "You think you have won?" she snarled at Captain Morgan and Chancellor Zarathiel. "You have doomed the galaxy to chaos. Without the Empire's order, you will tear each other apart within a generation." "Perhaps," Chancellor Zarathiel replied calmly. "But that will be our choice to make. Freedom includes the freedom to make mistakes." Dr. Williams worked frantically to disable the last planet-killer weapon while the final battle raged in the palace below. The device was larger and more complex than the others, designed to destroy not just worlds but entire star systems. If it activated, it would create a chain reaction that could devastate the galactic core. "Got it?" she called out as the weapon powered down. "All planet killers are disabled. The galaxy is safe." Empress Veltara was taken into custody by Admiral Nixara's forces. The crystal tyrant who had ruled for centuries would spend the rest of her existence in a prison built from the same crystal technology she had used to oppress the galaxy. 6 months later, Captain Morgan stood on the observation deck of the new Coalition headquarters, watching ships from hundreds of worlds dock at the orbital station. The Galactic Accords had been signed by representatives of every free species, establishing a democratic federation based on cooperation rather than domination. Chancellor Zarathiel joined her at the viewing port. The elven leader wore the simple robes of her office, having rejected the crown and crystal throne that some had offered her. "Any regrets?" the princess asked. Captain Morgan thought about the friends who had died in the war, the worlds that had suffered, and the price that freedom had demanded. "Many," she said. "But not about this. The galaxy is better free than enslaved, whatever the cost." Dr. Williams appeared beside them, carrying a datapad filled with scientific reports. "The exploration teams have made contact with 3 new galaxies. The Andromeda Federation is interested in establishing trade relations." Captain Morgan smiled. Humanity's mission of peaceful exploration could finally continue. The war was over, but the universe was vast and full of wonders waiting to be discovered. "Admiral Nixara sends her regards," Chancellor Zarathiel added. "The Veltaran Republic has voted to join the Federation. It seems even former Imperial citizens prefer freedom to tyranny." In the distance, ships from Earth and Sil Andros worked together to build new colonies on worlds that had been barren under Imperial rule. Human technology and elven wisdom were creating something neither species could have achieved alone. The galaxy had been transformed. Where once crystal ships had carried orders from an eternal throne, now vessels of every shape and design carried trade goods, scientific discoveries, and messages of friendship between free worlds. General Krixtal, freed in the prisoner exchange that ended the war, had established a military academy where former Imperial officers learned new ways of thinking about power and responsibility. The lessons of the war were being taught to a new generation who would never know the fear of living under tyranny. As Captain Morgan watched the stars through the viewing port, she knew that humanity had found its place in the galaxy. Not as conquerors or rulers, but as partners in the greatest adventure of all, building a future where freedom and cooperation could flourish among the stars. The Empire was gone, but the galaxy lived on, free at last to determine its own destiny.